What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV, aka Darth Apocalypse. All right, so in this particular video, and look, since LeBron fans and Clutch, and all of these Clutch, sycophants like to do all these what if scenarios. Well, let's do one that benefits Michael Jordan. Now, we all know that Bill Cartwright won 3 NBA championships with the Chicago Bulls in 1991, 1992, and 1993. And he was, even though people tend to downplay it, he played a large role, a huge role in those championships. When the Bulls acquired him, June 27th, 1988, I always remember that day because it was the same day of the Mike Tyson, Michael Spinks fight in, I think it was New Jersey. That fight was held. But Atlantic City. But anyway, the Bulls needed a scoring big man, all right? They needed a scoring center. And they also needed somebody who could guard some of the other top centers in the league. They needed someone that could score and do a good job of guarding the other top big men. And with the development of Horace Grant, that made Charles Oakley, although he was playing at a high level, and he was basically Michael Jordan's enforcer, that made him a little bit more expendable. And they pulled the trigger and got Bill Cartwright, which proved to be the right decision, at least from a success standpoint, because they ultimately did become a dynasty. And he was part of those first 3 dynasty teams. But at the same time, by the time Charles Oakley was traded to the New York Knicks for Bill Cartwright, Cartwright was 31 years old, and he was a banged-up 31. He had dealt with years of foot injuries. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say he had at least one knee injury. But I know he definitely had a bunch of foot injuries, which tends to happen to a lot of big men. And by the time the Bulls acquired him, he was still a capable scorer and a very good defender. He played great defense on big men, in particular Patrick Ewing, but he was not the same player. As a matter of fact, Bill Cartwright's rookie year with the New York Knicks, I think was 79-80, he was an all-star. His first 2 years in the NBA, he averaged 20 points a game, over 20 points a game. As a matter of fact, as late as 1986-87, Bill Cartwright averaged 17.5 points per game for the New York Knicks. So what if the Bulls had acquired Bill Cartwright a little bit earlier? Let's say 1986. What does that do for the franchise? Well, considering that he was a very effective big man for the Chicago Bulls, although he did not play a huge role offensively, I would assume on a team prior to the drafting of Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant, depending upon whether or not Charles Oakley was there or not, I'm going to make the assumption that Oakley was traded earlier, right, for Bill Cartwright. That would have been a better version of Cartwright, right? Plus, the Chicago Bulls training staff, from what I remember reading, was amongst the best in the NBA. So maybe Bill Cartwright, because of the better medical care, maybe they're able to stave off some of the long-term effects of these injuries. from Cartwright. Maybe basically what I'm saying is maybe his, I don't want to say his prime because he was at his best in the early to mid 80s, but you would have seen more of that close to prime Bill Cartwright a little bit longer going into the early 90s instead of like cutting off around 88, 87. So maybe the Bulls do win more championships with the development of Bill Cartwright and Cartwright more ingratiated to the Chicago Bulls system and a healthier Bill Cartwright, in addition to everything else falling in place as it did. Horace Grant playing alongside him, Scottie Pippen developing rapidly, Bill Cartwright, being a better version of himself a little bit longer, Scottie Pippen developing, as I said, Michael Jordan still being a perennial superstar athlete. So maybe if Bill Cartwright had gotten there earlier, the Detroit Pistons' reign doesn't last as long. Because we got to remember, if I'm not mistaken, the Chicago Bulls were in the conference finals in '89. So for all this talk about Michael Jordan was a failure, he didn't win. Look, Michael Jordan made the playoffs his rookie year, his second year, his third year, his fourth year, '88, they were in the semifinals. And by '89, they were in the conference finals. I don't see how that's a failure. Matter of fact, as soon as they acquired Bill Cartwright, they were in the conference finals. And the second year they had Cartwright, they were one game away from going to the NBA Finals. So if you have a healthier Bill Cartwright, then yeah, I think you can make a strong argument that they won a championship earlier. I would say definitely by 90. 89 is questionable because I do tend to think that you got to have that year where, you're kind of meshing together and, everything doesn't quite always flow. You got to go through some little bit of stumbles. A guy gets ingratiated into the offense. Plus, in 88, 89, that was before the triangle offense. That was with Doug Collins. I don't know. But I do think by 89, 90, with a healthier Bill Cartwright has been there for a couple of years, I think they beat the Detroit Pistons. I mean, because, hell, they did a better job of competing against the Pistons those 2 years than the other teams. They're the only team to beat the Detroit Pistons in the '89 playoffs. And they came closer to eliminating the Pistons in '90 than any other team. So for all this talk about how Detroit, were kicking the Bulls' ass, call it familiarity, whatever the case may be, the Bulls put a better contest in each one of those playoff runs than any other team against the Pistons. So if they have a healthier Bill Cartwright and a more productive Bill Cartwright, I don't think it's unreasonable to say that they could have very well eliminated the bad boy Pistons in 1990 and won a championship that year against the Portland Trailblazers. So yeah, maybe with a younger, healthier Bill Cartwright, maybe they win 4 championships, maybe more. I don't know. But I tend to think they'll win more. What do you guys think?